Welcome, everyone. My name is Hannah Knoll. I'm the Director of Member Engagement and Professional Education here at the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments. This is part one of ANHE Education Spring Webinar Series, Climate Resilience in Nursing Education. Today's presentation is using your university's mission and nursing education's accrediting bodies recommendations to support environmental health education. Our speaker is Dr. Ruth McDermott-Levy. Ruth McDermott-Levy is a professor and co-director of the Mid-Atlantic Center for Children's Health and the Environment and U.S. Region 3 Pediatric Environmental Health Specialty Unit at Villanova University's Fitzpatrick College of Nursing. She served as the university's director for the Center of Global and Public Health from 2014 to 2020. She teaches and researches the intersection of human health and the environment. Her publications include incorporating climate change into nursing curricula, climate and health impacts for older adults and children, climate change mortality, and health impacts of unconventional natural gas extraction in Pennsylvania. She also teaches a collaborative online international learning course, Global Perspectives of Climate and Health, with students and educators in Finland, Oman, Nigeria, India, and the US. In 2024, she received the university's Innovative Teaching Award for this course. In 2018, she was a Fulbright Scholar in Finland, where she worked with Finnish nurses to link climate change to health and address climate mitigation and adaptation strategies. She was awarded the Healthcare Without Harm and Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments 2020 Charlotte Brody Award for the nurse who exemplifies environmental health nursing leadership and is the editor-in-chief of ANHE 2021 and 2023 Environmental Health in Nursing, second and third editions of our e-textbook. I will turn it over to Ruth.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I'm going to share my slides. Well, but before I do that, I'm going to give you this series is looking at, again, how we can implement environmental health and climate change into the nursing curricula. And so today I'm going to give you kind of the high level picture of looking at, kind of curricular things and again, giving how we can leverage the factors that affect our education, like our mission and scope and standards of practice, how we can leverage those to get environmental health into our curricula, especially in this changing climate that we're experiencing right now and some of the policies that may be changing. And the unique position that universities are in right now. So let me just advance this. I think you can all see my slides. So I basically just said what our objectives are. So we're going to go through that. So as a reminder, and I know we've got some people here who are very seasoned faculty and some people who are new to the academic setting, but there are things that drive our curriculum, and there are actually many things. Initially, certainly the scope and standards of practice of identifying what our role is and what nursing is. Our state and territory requirements, because that comes down to licensure, and then our accrediting bodies, and then also our philosophy and mission of both our universities and our schools and colleges in nursing. And so we're going to look at that. Now, some schools of nursing also rely on a theoretical framework. It's actually about 25%. So we're not going to get into those frameworks. It's not many schools that do that. I actually only know one in my area that relies on a theoretical framework. And then also, it's really important that we recognize our local health issues. Although we take a national licensure exam, for the most part, we are also educating for what's happening regionally. And then certainly the scientific evidence. So all of these things really give us the power to be able to say, this is important, and we need to think beyond just, the diseases of treating somebody with, renal failure or cardiac problem. So, as I said this, and Hannah also said that this is a part of a series. So we're going to consider today what you teach, and then we're going to get into a little bit of why we teach it, and then throughout this seminar series, we're going to look at how to teach it. So we're going to hit on all those things over the course of this series. So the first thing to look at is the scope and standard of practice in nursing. And my favorite thing to quote or recognize related to this is that we are ethically required to include the standards in our practice. And so when things aren't going well for trying to move climate or environmental health issues forward, I bring that up all the time, that we are required to follow the scope and standards of practice. So what does it say? Right now, we have two standards that influence our scope and standard. Wait a minute, I gotta. There. So the first one is our standard 17. And this looks at essentially the products we use and how we are stewards of our environment in the many, many products that we use in delivering healthcare and addressing the needs of patients and communities. And so I'm not going to read these to you, but you can see that we are required, again, to work across our stakeholders and across different disciplines to address those needs. And many hospitals and healthcare agencies do have, green teams or sustainability teams that are looking at this. And again, this is really important that we include that in our education with our nursing students at all levels, and also consider how we might get them engaged with the local health systems that you're working with. The second standard is more focused kind of on the impacts of the natural environment and exposures that people may come across. And so looking at the relationship of social determinants of health, so that also gets into issues of justice related to the environment, and then looking at reducing environmental risks to both ourselves, our colleagues, and when they say the world, that means everyone around us. So, being able to identify those risks and reducing those risks for people. And then we also need to be able to refer people to environmental health risks. Now, a little plug for my own work with the Center for the Mid-Atlantic Center for Children's Health and the Environment. In the United States, we have a network of pediatric environmental health specialty units that can help people navigate through environmental exposures and environmental risk. And we do education. So, you can think about that. We do focus on reproductive and children's environmental health, but if somebody's contacting us with an adult issue, we typically will give them, the right links and right information to get them, the information they need. So there is a resource that's out there. In addition to, of course, the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, there's many experts here at ANHE. So the other thing is the 2025 ANA Code of Ethics, and I am going to read this because I think this is pretty profound, is that human life and health are profoundly affected by the state of the natural world that surrounds us. Planetary health challenges includes environmental degradation, aridification, I always struggle saying that, exploitation of Earth's resources, ecosystem destruction, climate change, waste, microplastics, forever chemicals, and other environmental assaults. These disproportionately affect the health of the poor and ultimately affect the health of all humanity. Nursing advocates for policies, programs, legislation, practices that maintain and sustain the natural world. And nurses are knowledgeable about complex social and global issues and skilled in policy or a variety of forms of activism should represent a voice of nursing in relation to these concerns. Multiple perspectives should be respected within the community of nursing. So this lays out, again, within our code of ethics, lays out the importance of the environment, what is happening to our environment, and also our role in both educating and being active in addressing policies that affect the environment. I also like the last statement of multiple perspectives should be respected within community of nursing. We need to understand, and we see it playing out in the news, that not all nurse colleagues are with us in this. And so we need to, listen, and we need to find kind of common ground of what can we get people to, I'm going to say buy in, but that's probably the wrong word. But how can we get people to address these very important issues that affect their patients? One way to do it is sometimes climate change is a trigger word for people or phrase. And so, if we can talk about in terms of extreme weather, if we can talk about, the heat that is happening and heat waves, we can often get buy-in from that. For an example, in Pennsylvania, we looked at community organizations that address older adults, and so essentially senior centers, and how they're doing with adaptation. We worked with our state agencies with this, and they initially said we can look at climate change. How are you adapting to climate change? We were not getting any responses from our state, from our senior centers. We changed the word to extreme weather and heat, or the phrase, and we got responses. And so it's really the same thing we're talking about. But so, again, we need to be respectful, and how can we move this forward? And thinking about that, also talking about your within your schools of nursing. So we also then, as I kind of alluded to, is state and territory requirements. Every state has unique requirements. A lot of times this pops up in, different things that you need to do for licensure. For example, in Pennsylvania, I need to do child abuse education in addition to the requirements of my license. I'm also licensed in Massachusetts, and I have to do a whole different set of things related to social determinants of health. So we need to be able to address that too when we're thinking about our education and how that might play into educating for climate and environmental health. So as you know, we have accrediting bodies. And the two major ones are the Accreditation Commission for Education and Nursing. They address accreditation of PN schools, practical nursing schools, associate's degree, also BSN, MSN, and DNP programs. And then CCNE, which addresses BSN, MSN, and DNP. So it just depends on the school, which works best for them. Certainly, if you have AD or PN programs, you're going to go with ACEN. But looking at the requirements of both of these accrediting bodies for accreditation of the School of Nursing, and that's required usually for the state. That needs to have an accredited program. For the state accreditation, you often have to be accredited by the professional organization. And so reviewing both of those, for the ACEN, the accreditation standards for nursing education does not include anything related to climate change or environmental health. I did review that document. They talk about the learning environment, but not environmental health. However, it does mention using the current science. And there is plenty of science out there to recognize and demonstrate that this isn't a health issue. So that is one way to address it. In addition, this is the accreditation body of the NLN, the National League for Nurses. And they have a really strong vision statement that they put out, I want to say in 2023, it could be 2024, it's recent, on climate and health. And that statement clearly says that it needs to be part of nursing education, climate and health. So again, these are documents that can support incorporating this into your curriculum. in the essentials for CCNE, they include issues such as planetary health and climate science. They also state that environmental exposure information needs to be included, and then understanding the impact of climate change on the environment for population health. So they come out much stronger on this. But as I said, ACEN, they address it through the NLN's document and then also using the science. And then we also have the Future of Nursing, which is not an accrediting body, but it is often used in developing curricula. And it is a strong document. And they also have that we need to have a fundamental and seismic change required in nursing education if the profession is to keep pace with the increased number of natural disasters and public health emergencies. So, and they, call out climate change and air quality. So again, we've got these, outside documents that are supporting this important work for your curriculum. So we're going to look at, and if you want to take a minute or so to pull up your own school's curriculum, if you're not in, your own university's philosophy and the School of Nursing curriculum. If you're not currently in a School of Nursing, you can pull up your alma mater if you'd like. And because we're going to look at those as tools to be able to incorporate this into our own curriculum. Now, I have 3 examples. I have an example of a religiously based school, a state school, and a non-denominational private school. And we're going to look at the philosophy of the university and then the philosophy or the mission of each school of nursing and see how we might be able to use those to move things forward. So the philosophy of a university often has the core values. It also reflects the needs of the community, its strategic goals, and then its context within higher education. And then also we want to consider the Carnegie designation of the school, and that's really related to how research intensive the school is. And so you may see different things related to that when you're looking at a school. So, and again, the mission of the School of Nursing would have, again, its core values, and then typically it's teaching philosophy and the hope for outcomes of the graduates. So let me just see if okay, that's right. Okay, and then again, thinking of the context of the school. So I'm outside of Philadelphia, and so looking at the environment of our area, especially related to climate change. The first one is a high ozone day. You can see the haze, and that's typically a problem related to the heat in the area. We typically have days of very poor air quality. As a matter of fact, we're rated 8th for asthma across the country. And then we also get a lot of rain with heat. You get retaining moisture, and then it has to go somewhere. So we get a lot of rain. And this is actually a major highway that was flooded. I think this was 2022. But you can see the signs to the left. That's a tunnel. So that's how deep the water was in a highway in Philadelphia. So I looked at my own university is an example. So the other 2 universities, I don't have the names for their, for the anonymous, but for Villanova, where I am outside of Philadelphia, here is the mission of the university. And as I read this, I want you to think about what is in this mission that could support environmental health or climate change or both into the curriculum. So Villanova University is a Catholic Augustinian community of higher education committed to excellence and distinction in the discovery, dissemination, and application of knowledge inspired by the life and teaching of Jesus Christ. The university is grounded in the wisdom of the Catholic intellectual tradition and advances a deeper understanding of the relationship between faith and reason. Villanova emphasizes and celebrates the liberal arts and sciences as foundational to all academic programs. The university community welcomes and respects members of all faith who seek to nurture a concern for the common good, who share an enthusiasm for the challenge of responsible and productive citizenship in order to build a peaceful world. So in that, what do you see that we might be able to use to support environmental health or climate change in our education program? You can either unmute or you can type it in. I'm not seeing the chat. So if you could unmute, that would be great. I'm not seeing the chat. Oh, wait, here it is.
Hi, this is Ann. I think one of the most important things, and from outside Philly, I think as an answer to your question, I think one of the most productive things we could do is just to educate. That's not always easy because there are still some people who don't believe in climate change. Or not aware of it, but I think as educators, not all schools right now have a focus on climate change. So I think having a course or even a program for climate change is very important. So the next generation of nurses and nurse practitioners are aware of it. I was able to help get a course, not a course, I'm sorry, we're not there yet, an assignment at Walden on climate change. So the students are aware of it and they do readings and they are actually using the ANHE textbook for the assignment. So, it's just, sometimes it's little steps, we can't, some of our schools just can't go right to having a whole program on climate health, but I think doing what we can with where we are is important.
Yes, absolutely. And it often does take baby steps. I could tell you stories, and I'm sure many of us could, of those baby and actually probably even crawling. But when we look at this, and I see the comments that people made, right, concern for the common good, because that is concern for the overall community and what their needs are. And so again, you can, if you are having problems moving this forward, you can go and look and say, wait a minute, this is who we are. So why aren't we addressing this important thing? Responsible citizenship. And Clara said the just and peaceful world, because you're absolutely right. We're seeing areas of conflict because of not being able to get to food from droughts and things related to climate change. And so you may need to link that in. You may need to also, thinking about just and peaceful world, you may need to partner with other disciplines at your university that can, support that for you. Because it's often odd, I'm found, for nurses to be talking about these things. We get it, but others don't. So, like, why does a nurse care about that? And so we have to be able to articulate that. And sometimes our colleagues can give us some information for that. So that was a religiously affiliated school. There it goes. Okay, so this is a state university. And again, I'm not going to share the name of the university, but so I have this university. The mission of this university is to achieve excellence in interrelated areas of undergraduate education, graduate education, research, and public service. This is a R3 major university. The university provides superior and comprehensive, R1, superior and comprehensive educational opportunities to the baccalaureate through doctoral and special professional educational levels. The university contributes to advancement of society through research, creative activities, scholarly inquiry, the development and dissemination of new knowledge, including the commercialization of university discoveries, and the university preserves and promotes the arts, benefits the state's economy, and serves the citizen through public programs and provides other public services. So what do you see here that someone could use who teaches at this university? Okay, so Kathy has research, public service, comprehensive dissemination of new knowledge, and public service. Absolutely. And if we have any innovative nurses, perhaps commercialization too. I mean, there's apps that could be developed to keep people healthy. And so, yeah, so again, a major state university that, may or may not be in a conservative area, we can support, again, bringing in environmental health education and climate change education. And as Anne said, it may take baby steps. So this is a private non-denominational university. Again, they did not exceed the word count. I kind of like this. It's right to the point. Empowering our community of learners to discover and create better futures. So do you see where that could support? Yeah, better futures, creating better futures. Absolutely. And empowering our learners too. I mean, they just essentially, in our way of thinking about things, they've come right out and said, without, using it, climate change, that this, if we empower our learners, they can discover and create better futures. And that definitely is related to our future. So that was the university. So you can find within your university ways to kind of help move this forward for people who are having challenges. I had challenges early on, I will tell you that. I just kept moving. So let me move. So this again is Villanova. We did exceed our word count on this. I was part of this writing this mission, and it was well, when you bring a bunch of PhDs together, it can be quite a challenge. But it was something, and it really does go on. So I'll try to make it brief. Healing is nursing is a healing ministry emanated by love and demonstrated through service and care of others. It is a healing art and science practice and discipline taught at the university, concerned for spiritual health as well as the mind and body. Person-centered, such as holistic, individualized, coordinated, evidence-based, just, and developmentally appropriate. Foundational to person-centered care is a respect for diversity in its a multitude of forms, differences, preferences, values, needs, and resources, and the determinants of health unique to the individual, family, and community. And then it gets into the curricula, practice and concern for others, and included, not limited to, and this gets into the diversity of our community. And then it educates individuals for service to a diverse global society, including all sectors and strata of the population. Our graduates are prepared to assume roles in a variety of settings. So what do we see here? Is there anything here that could support climate change and education, climate change and environmental health education? This is very wordy, I will tell you. So these are the ones that I came up with. Oops, shoot. There. That it's holistic, coordinated and evidence-based and just, and then also the determinants of health. So it is in there. And so again, had I had to kind of fight the fight to be able to incorporate this into our nursing education, I would have used those things. I also frequently use the ANA standards, again, saying that we are required, ethically required to follow them. So the other two, these are much more parsimonious, which I appreciate. The State School of Nursing has, the mission of the School of Nursing is to achieve excellence in nursing education, research, and scholarship and public service. So is there anything there that you could see would support nursing education? Yeah, the public service. Absolutely. Yeah, excellence too. Yeah, Kathy, that's a good point. If we're going to really teach our students, this is the important thing to teach them. And then the last one is our non-denominational School of Nursing. And they have empowering an interprofessional community of learners to advance health through practice, scholarship, leadership, and innovation. It says leadership and innovation. Absolutely. And so, and advanced health. Absolutely. So this one really says it all for how we want to move things forward. I need to go back to Villanova and share how lovely a brief mission can be. Anyway, so these are things that I encourage you to look at within your own schools. So this is the part where we're going to have be able to discuss what you're seeing at your own school and how you can or how you are moving it forward or what those challenges might be. And I'm going to stop the recording so that you can speak freely.